you very much, Sadikap. Unfortunately, that's most of the Thai I know, so the rest will be in English. Thank you very much for your time. At RIVERBED, we have been known for WAN optimization. Many companies have been using our technology. So I wanted to explain today, well, how are we relevant to Zero Trust? How can we help? And a lot of that has to do with how do we do threat hunting with observability. So you may know us as well for our orange logos. We've changed that as well because we're focusing a lot more on observability. And I'll talk about how we have a thing called Alluvio, which helps with observability. Okay, so we've been looking at monitoring and visibility for a very long time. We've been looking at performance management for a very long time. And what's happening is security and network monitoring are coming together. If we look back here, a thing called Morris Internet Worm in 1988, reading some articles, I know the theme today is about Zero Trust, and a lot of articles will tell you that the Morris Worm was really the start of Zero Trust, because the Morris Worm in 1988 was when people started to realize that you can't just trust everything. You need to validate before you let something access your systems. So the Morris Worm was really a proof of concept about, can I get a program to replicate itself across multiple systems? Unfortunately, what happened was that the Morris Worm kept replicating and kept copying onto systems and slowing the systems down. And what people found was that the systems were slowing down. They were having performance issues. So performance and security come together. A security incident can be recognized because the performance is not working well. So they're merging together. We're merging our tools together. We're merging people together. We're merging attitudes. We're thinking the same way when it comes to performance and security. And it's also important to think about maybe we need to merge budgets together. So if we have network operations with a budget, and we also have our security teams with a budget, maybe the budgets need to be combined because that allows you to capture more data to look at. So you can retain data for longer, you can get more fidelity data as well. And the other thing is too, is that sometimes we don't know whether we're looking at a performance issue or we're looking at a security issue, and we don't know what the thing is that's causing the problem. Maybe it's just a configuration was done wrong, or maybe that our environment or our networks are getting attacked. So this is where things like threat hunting start coming into it. The other thing too is that when we look at network analysis, this is just showing you just a snapshot of the MITRE Defend framework that the National Security Agency in America has. And if you look at part of their framework for securing your environments is around detection and analysis. So we've been doing analysis and network capture for a very long time, and that even when you look at frameworks like MITRE, it's a very big part of keeping your environment secure. So on to threat hunting. What we focus on at RIVERBED and what we can help with is what we call advanced persistent threats. So if you were to map out all the different threats and the things you're trying to detect, in the bottom left-hand corner, that's the easy stuff. That's the stuff we know to look for. That's well known. We have signatures we're looking for. We have antivirus. So we know that that's bad and we can do something about it. Then we have in the middle, it could be bad, it could be bad, it could be okay. It could be normal or it might not be normal. So we need to do some analysis, some detective work to see if that's something we need to be worried about. And then the last thing in the top right-hand corner is the advanced persistent threats. And this is the hard stuff. And this is where you need threat hunting, because people have lots of money, resources, lots of sophistication with these threats. They can get into the network and they hide in the network, and we need to find them. And that's what threat hunting is about. So cyber threat hunting, it can be difficult, but the process is actually pretty straightforward. But what we need to be mindful of is that no evidence of compromise is evidence there's no compromise. So just because we haven't found anything or our detection systems haven't found anything, doesn't mean that someone hasn't got into the environment. So threat hunting is trying to figure that out. And you can see there it talks about, on average, we see these kind of threats, they get into your environment and they stay there for an average of 200 days before they do anything. So we need to find them and actually do something about it. We need to detect them. And we talk about, at RIVERBED, about full fidelity. We want to get as much data or as much telemetry as possible So we can get full visibility of the environment, and we can go and find these things. And that's a really important thing for us, and I'll talk about how we do that in a sec. But we want to get as much data, full fidelity, so as detailed as we possibly can, so to help with this threat hunting. So how do we do threat hunting? It's actually pretty straightforward. You need a whiteboard. You need a bunch of people sharing ideas, mapping out, doing network diagrams, all the things that technical people like doing to figure out how do we go and track something down. You need the telemetry as well. So we talk about things like capturing packets and storing those packets, getting flow, getting logs, getting information off the endpoints as well, bringing that all together so we have as much data as we can, as much visibility as we possibly can to find something. We need a mindset, we need to look, we need to be creative. In lots of respects, threat hunting can actually be a lot of fun, as long as you find something before it does something bad to your environment. One of the things that helps a lot is we do need anomaly detection. So one of the things that you'll hear us say a lot is that RIVERBED's not a security company, because there's plenty of security companies out there. There's plenty of vendors out there, lots of them in this room, lots of them you work with MTech, to help you with that. What we do is we're able to provide the data to help with that security posture, to assist the security operations teams. Okay, now I get onto observability. I've talked very quickly about threat hunting. Now I need to talk about observability. What observability is the glue that brings everything together. So what observability helps do, if you're trying to get telemetry, you're trying to collect data off servers, off all of your network devices, off your routers, your switches, your infrastructure, your endpoints, we're getting a lot of data. You can imagine that if we're trying to instrument or get telemetry from all of these sources, we end up with an awful lot of data. So it's very hard to understand, well, what is the stuff that I need to look at and what's the stuff I shouldn't do, I don't need to look at. So that's what observability is about. It's like trying to, if you can see it, then you can protect it. But then observability helps you by saying, what does that mean? Is it important? Why did it happen? What caused it? Is this the most important thing I need to focus on, or is there something else that's more important? Because we've only got so much time, and as humans, there's only so much information we can look at and process. So observability is helping us with that. And you'll hear lots of vendors talking about observability. RIVERBED talks about it a lot. It's kind of good to look at it from an independent perspective on what observability is. So Gartner talks about observability as allowing the skilled observer to do something about it. Look at the behavior of a system, and then with enough instrumentation, be able to do something about it. So that's one definition of observability. What we talk about at RIVERBED is we talk about Alluvio Unified Observability. So that's the offering we have, which is being able to take all of this information, being able to use artificial intelligence and machine learning to figure out what's the most important thing. When this thing happens, do something about it over here. So getting systems to help you understand what you need to look at, and then get the right insights you need to be able to make the right decisions. So we have this portfolio that we launched fairly recently, and we're building out on it. So we have all of the telemetry I talked about before, full fidelity telemetry. We're capturing as much information as we possibly can. We'll capture information from the end user devices, we'll capture it from the applications itself, we'll capture it from the network, and we'll capture it from the infrastructure. So we're getting all of this telemetry, we're getting all of this data. And that's stuff that we've been doing for a long time. But above that, we then want to do something with that. We want to understand what all that information. We need to help the observer or the operator understand what's important and what's not important. So that's where we'll start correlating, we'll start doing detection. You can see we talk about artificial intelligence machine learning to help understand what's important. Once we figure out what are the important things to do, then being able to script the actions that you need to do to create runbooks. So if you think about in your IT teams, you have people that are very, very smart that know everything about your environment, but there's not many of those people, and they're very easy to get busy. Sometimes they're very hard to get a hold of. So being able to take their expertise and scripting that together, and then even getting to the point where we can start using automated remediation to do something about what we're seeing. So that these are all things that we're building out. We'll be spending a lot more time talking to our customers and our partners about this. We'll talk to the market about how we're taking all this telemetry and being able to bring it all together into this observability to allow your businesses to do the things they need, such as business outcomes like reducing costs, increasing revenue, taking risk out of your environment. So it's really taking all of this information and being able to find out what's important and then doing something about it. So how we do that, and this is starting to look at a little bit of how we do these things at RIVERBED. It's all about threat hunting, it's all about pivoting, and it's all about drilling down. So it's all about figuring out, okay, now I know this is the IP address that I'm having some problems, I'm worried about. Well, who are the users on that IP address? What applications are they using? So it's all about trying to go down one direction. So it's pivoting from applications to IP addresses, to users, to network devices. And then once we've found something, we want to be able to drill down very quickly and to find out what that is. And often we talk about that as being able to drill down from flow information down to packet. So seeing a very comprehensive view of everything and then drilling down to the specifics. And then being able to map things out. So once you know where you've been compromised, you can start to see, okay, that host was compromised. What other hosts did that talk to? So what other systems are infected? So mapping out that whole thing. So just as an example to show you as I go through in more detail, and this is giving an example of how we can use the observability platforms to do threat hunting. So an example here is the system has figured out a bunch of incidents. And as an example, let's say we want to look at that exfiltration event. So we're going to drill into that. We drill into it and we can start seeing more of the picture. So we get to see how much of this data is being exfiltrated. We drill further down into that and we can see that a web server is acting like a client. So things are starting to look pretty suspicious here. We can then go and look at that actual web server and we can start looking at from a threat hunting perspective to show me what's happened to that IP address, what's happened on that host that I need to be worried about. And then we can get into the detail. We can do the drill down into the packets to find out exactly what's going on. And just one last thing on that last point is that once you've figured out that sequence of events, that's where the skilled operator, the person that knows how to use these systems is doing these steps. You capture that as a run book or a scripted investigation, so now that you can keep using that process when that event comes. So another thing to look at here is mapping out where a worm's been in your environment. Looking at where, once you've figured out the suspicious host that got compromised, you can map it out. So we can map that out, map all the different hosts that have been affected, and we can do some detailed analysis onto it. So we could right-click on any of those points there and say, give me a vulnerability scan on what's happened to those. We can also look at it from I'll just skip ahead there. We can look at it and say, okay, what are the IP address that host has been talking to? So we can get some more detail around it. So it's all about being able to right-click on things and be able to do your searching. So this is the threat hunting I was talking about. We can even get to the point that maybe we'll want to go and grab, for that host, who were the users on that? Because maybe one of those users was the person that either on purpose or inadvertently went and compromised that host. So we can get that detail. So it's all about getting all these different sources of data and then bringing it together into a single system to help you do this threat hunting. So that's pretty much it. I didn't want to spend too much time talking about it. I just wanted to give you some concepts there. But just in summary, so it's about threat hunting plus observability. And again, it's targeting those advanced persistent threats. It can be complex, but the basics are very simple. You need full fidelity telemetry when you're trying to do threat hunting. You can't miss anything because you're going to need all of that data or all that detail to be able to track things down. It's like having a security camera that you keep turning off. You don't want to turn the security camera off because you might miss something. So we need to capture and store everything to be able to do this. And it also helps with the evidence as well. You need all of that evidence to be able to track these threats down. And lastly, Unified Observability is going to help. So you see that term getting used more and more. Certainly I've been involved in conversations with customers over the last few months, and observability is very top of mind because it's trying to figure out how do we get all these systems talking to each other, but then how do we do something about all of this information that's being presented to the operators? So observability is going to help you by bringing that all together and being able to do the analysis. So that's everything. We've got a stand over there in the corner where if you want to talk more about this and how we can help you understand your environment and help you understand what's going on in your environment, then more than happy to talk to you. We can show you some of this in more detail. Apart from that, thank you very much for your time. I really appreciate being invited here and looking forward to catching up with some of you afterwards. So thank you very much. Bye-bye.